I have been working on getting diverse voices into technology for basically my entire career, which is mostly informed by the fact that I am a woman in a primarily male-dominated field and a person of color in a primarily not person of color-dominated field. And so, like, I have a lot of stuff that was a hurdle for me along the way, and I kind of feel like if it's ever the case that you wished someone would help you along the way and you then succeeded anyway, it's your job to help other people do that too. Reach a hand back and help other people climb with you. And so that's what I'm doing. I love literally every day of my job.
So you've been at Automatic?
Correct.
For
4 years.
4 years. So, but you've only been doing what you've been doing for 3.
Correct.
What were you doing the first year?
I was, the first year at Automatic, I was managing the Meetup program and also supporting WordCamps. So the Meetup program, which is now at 706 or something, Meetup groups. When I joined the company, we had about 60. And the team that now is working on that and supporting it, and I assume how you all found out about this event, are fantastic and have grown it far past what I ever thought I could do by myself. So yeah, that's what I did my first year. Meetups and WordCamps.
So what, I'm curious, what do you see an executive director for an open source project doing? Like, I know we know what you've been doing, but since there is, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think that there is a precedent for, you can do what an executive director does at any other company, but I don't know that that applies necessarily.
Yeah, so it should be first noted that when I was talking to Matt Mullenweg, I report to him. And we were talking about like how to make this work and how to make this type of position excellent and functional and worth all of the time that you all, and time and attention that you all very graciously give me. And we really, the naming was difficult because executive directorship tends to belong to nonprofits. And WordPress, the project is not a nonprofit. So there's the WordPress Foundation that is a nonprofit, but it basically protects the trademark and does some educational work. And then the WordPress project is all of y'all, and we're not a collection of people working under a nonprofit. And so that was really difficult to actually come to a decision on. As far as what the work entails from here until hopefully, you know, eternity, but for as long as you all will let me do this, really is the answer to that question. I think the thing that I can do the most right now is to help with a lot of these feelings that we in the community have around like not knowing why things are happening. Like not to disparage anyone, but to name an elephant in the room, I feel like Gutenberg is getting a bad name, and there are a lot of sighs and angry faces when people talk about it in presentations. And so, like, I feel as though if I can help just clarify the reasons behind why some of those choices are being made, and like the overall benefit long-term that it can bring to the project and to people's lives, and to kind of just changing this landscape that we're in, I think that that's a big thing that I can do.
Thank you. So, when I think back to all of the folks that have, before there was an executive director, before you were doing what you've been doing, there are some people within the community that have stepped up. Andrew Middleton, Milo, there are other folks that have played the role a little bit.
The giants that came before me, that's what he's trying to say. They are and were amazing people.
And still. And so there's a legacy, I guess. You have inherited a lot of decisions. And WordPress as a project has a trajectory. It is being built, and it is led, and it has a philosophy all its own. Code is poetry, democratized publishing, and so for the type of leadership role that an executive director typically would be, what's your roadmap, I guess, for implementing or helping sort of share the vision to everyone as you go?
You're like the fourth person to ask me about my personal roadmap. I have never been asked about a personal roadmap before in my life. And this, I don't know if there was a talk like on Thursday that I missed where everyone's like, ask people their personal roadmaps, but if so, good job, whoever did it, because they're doing it. No, so personal, like my roadmap for how to make these changes. It should first be said that I think that there are two major changes that the WordPress project and the WordPress tool kind of need to see in the next 3 to 5 years. Which 3 years is about as far as I ever dare to dream, because then you can plan. Like, I don't dream out 10 years, because that's then just a dream, and I can never execute against that. I can't implement 10 years away. But the first thing that the tool itself has to do is become more usable to more people. And I know that that's like this trite thing that everyone hears all the time, but specifically, I think that we need to make it more accessible to more people out of the box. And I think that we need to make it less of a burden to learn how to do anything. I go to WordPress 101 events all the time because it has been so long since I was a beginning person in WordPress that I know that I have no idea the struggles that are happening, and so I go and see the things that people hate to do the most. And I have to tell you, they haven't changed a lot. It's, you know, we still hate how hard it is to make menus. And we still hate the fact that there are 5 different interfaces inside a single CMS tool. And so I think that that's one thing that we need to change. We need to change the accessibility, we need to change the experience overall that people have from freshly into WordPress all the way down to have been building WordPress since before I knew it existed. We have 2 of them over there, so that's why I gestured. So yeah, I think that that's an immediate need. I think that an immediate need that the people side of WordPress needs, though, is more of people listening. So in the first 6 months of my job, I'm halfway through, my entire plan is to just be on a listening tour, and I have just been going from WordCamp to WordCamp to WordCamp doing these things, and talking to people about what has been so hard to get involved with WordPress the community, get involved with WordPress the tool, get involved with giving back, and just gathering everybody's pain points all along the way. So I don't quite have a roadmap around that because I finished up 2 retrospectives already, 2 like open calls for people to give me their grievances. From Seinfeld, that's like Festivus. Yes, the airing of grievances, I did 2. And I've got 1 more that we're kind of that I'm kind of doing in person with people as I can find them. And so right now I don't have much of a roadmap because I don't have everybody's answers.
That makes sense.
However, on make.wordpress.org/updates, which is a site that currently is being used mostly by me, but also by a bunch of volunteers who put together WordPress to communicate about the big things that are happening and the things that they're working on. If you look at that site, all of my plans and roadmaps for all of that stuff will go live there as they unfold in almost real time, because I do have to type between the brain. So, yeah.
So one of the things that in the past 3 years that I feel like you have brought to the WordPress project that was there and existed, but that you helped really solidify is the communication process. Is the WordPress is open, it's open source, and there's open communication, and decision making is as open as it can really possibly be. Can you talk a little bit about your process with that, or your thought?
Communication process, or
how you implemented your communication process across all of these teams?
This is a great question. It is something that I'm giving a talk about later, but not later here. Later in the evening. However, so I just posted something on my own site, which I use for my own opinions. It's josepha.blog, if you're interested in giving a read to some of my leadership thoughts. But I really believe that in order to have an open communicative space to work in, people have to have some level of safety. So there's psychological safety, which kind of everybody is aware of that term right now. There's physical safety, which is like what everybody knows, like you can't come up and hit me, right? But also there is this concept of moral safety as well. And so there are all of these things that you can do as a leader to help people have a better experience and feel comfortable and like they belong in your space. And so I'm going to tell you all the hit list of things that I have done as I have helped teams rebuild their own internal safety, because it's a thing that I've done as part of my career for a long time. And they're easy. First one, if you are a leader, greet your team every day, because their initial interaction is what sets the tone for their day every single day. So I have a colleague of mine here. She has seen me go into 1 million Slack channels on some mornings, it feels like. And she's like, hello everybody, happy Monday, which I'm sure they hate. No one loves a happy Monday. But on Fridays, we celebrate otters because I love otters. And so small positive interactions over the course of the day as a leader is one of the biggest and smallest things that you can do right now to make a change around how the psychological safety is working for your organization. Another thing that you can and should do is anytime that you're starting a meeting, you should always you should bookend it. You have to provide the context of who's here, why you're here, what you're planning to do, and what you should do if you think maybe you don't belong in this meeting. Because in Slack, it's just like a 24/7 meeting with no agenda and no concept of who's in the room at the time. And so you have to announce, I'm here, we're going to talk about development. If you don't feel comfortable talking about development, you can watch, we won't kick you out, but also don't ask us any questions about your plugin right now, because Josepha's running a meeting. And then signing off with hey, thank you everybody for coming. These are the things we said we were going to do, and then posting them somewhere. It's really basic, normal stuff. As far as coming up with a way to help people have greater psychological safety for themselves as members of the project, but also greater moral safety. Does anyone know what I mean when I say moral safety? Just me? Cool, I'll tell you in 10 seconds. It is the comfort of knowing that your philosophies line up with the philosophies of whoever you're working for. And so the things that you believe in and are having to do match with what you have to do at work, basically, in our context. And so what I started with is to take over that internal blog, the /updates blog, and start just outlining what it was that we were doing and why. And then I started posting on my blog that I shared earlier, letting you all know why I do things and what informs my thoughts around how we implement stuff. So those are 3 big, gigantic, but also really small things that you can do and that I have done across the project. So.
I mean, you've heard me say this before, but I think for the live stream and for everyone else, one of the things that I've complimented you on before that I really appreciate is how you're able to treat your personal blog and the official updates blog differently, and to have the 2 different voices and share the things that you're maybe working on or musing about versus the things that are sort of canonical to leadership and the WordPress project and things like that. Plus, it's also using the tool for its purpose for your own blog. Right?
Yeah, if I never use WordPress, what business do I have leading anything? So there's that. But yeah.
Well, I just wanted to give you a compliment for the live stream, because I think that's not easy to do. Is to change your internal channel and decide to be a different, or put a different hat on and blog one way and then eventually sort of mutate that into something else.
Speaking of the live stream, I don't mean to keep forgetting you all, and I apologize, but if you are watching this at home or from a coffee shop around the street or whatever, if you have questions, you can tweet them on the #SassyPickle right now. I will happily explain that hashtag too, but we have someone here in the audience who's monitoring that in case you have questions, and Angela, you can just flags down if something is.
And so since this is a Q&A, and also since my talk immediately follows this Q&A, we have some flexible time if it came down to it and we're having a good time. And so if some people have questions for Josepha, you can raise a hand and we can repeat it for the live stream and make this comfortable and open. That's the whole goal. We had some good questions for Matt last year, so I know we'll have good questions for Josepha today. But so WordPress being open source and contributorship being largely volunteer-based, can you talk a little bit about, I don't know, the challenges of wrangling volunteers?
John coming in with the hard-hitting questions. Thank you. Yes, I can. So, how many of you already give back to the WordPress project in some way? Oh, that's good. For our live stream watchers, I'd say that's like 15-20%. That's pretty good. How many of you don't know what I'm talking about when I just asked you that? Yeah, okay, yeah.
That's an important question.
So everyone who didn't raise their hands, you're either those people who are like, I'm never raising my hand for anything, or you've heard of the open source volunteer part of this project, and good for you. So there are, okay, I'm gonna get very nerdy about group dynamics really fast, and we'll come right back up out of it, and I promise. So there is inherent difficulty in working with groups when you're working toward a single goal, and also working with distributed groups when you're working toward a single goal, and also when you're working with volunteers when you're working toward a single goal. And so you might have noticed that that is literally everything that describes the WordPress community. Like, we're all distributed, we're all volunteers, and also we're all trying to get something done on behalf of other people, no matter who those other people are at the moment. And so, as anyone who's trying to lead a team in those circumstances probably knows in their feelings parts of themselves, but maybe have never figured it out in their brain parts, the risk of things not being done correctly or on time or any of those things skyrockets. Like, you are inheriting an essential risk in asking other people to help you anytime. And so we as the WordPress community are global, so we're really far apart, and the constant risk of just never getting the next release out is sky high anytime you look at it. So that's the difficulty of working with volunteers, man. Did you want me to talk about, like, how to make it easier, how to make it better?
I mean, as a volunteer who misses every possible deadline.
No, you showed up here on time.
Sure, barely. The success rate so far has been pretty high, I feel like. It's been maybe better.
We're almost at 5.2.
Right.
We're almost at 1 million types of WordPress. That's not 1 million. How many is that? I'm looking at the two people.
I should count the WordPress releases total. I counted the BuddyPress and DBPress releases for my talk. I didn't count the number of WordPress releases total.
They're conferring about the...
That's right, yeah.
40-something releases of WordPress. Thank you for the philosophical answer and the guessing answer. I love the both.
And that's not counting minors or security releases or patch releases or anything, that's just majors, yeah.
Yeah, so
I feel like you've done things on time. We haven't really punted anything major. We, meaning everyone. So things are kind of rocking, I feel like.
But here's the thing. I strongly believe that whatever got you to today isn't what gets you to tomorrow, right? Like, we are gigantic now. I don't know if any of you saw, but we are supporting like 34% of the web right now. And that makes every choice and every decision and every line of code, every single translation that comes in, incredibly consequential. And the people that we serve, I am fond of stealing this phrase from Blizzard. We serve a majority collection of minorities. And so one of the inherent problems I find with motivating people to serve a community like that and serve stakeholders like that is that finding a way to remind people that we were once there too can be really hard. There's a gigantic chasm between like knowing nothing and knowing everything, and once you're on the knowing everything side, it's so hard to come back and remember how hard it was at the beginning. And I think that that's one of the things about Gutenberg that once it gets done is going to be great, because it's supposed to be unifying the editing experience across the entire WordPress tool and making it more like an iPhone and less like a, tin can in a string. That's not what WordPress is. Do not say I said that to you.
So I just got the soft 5-minute. Soft 5-minute is up indicator. So, are there questions? Who has a question? There's a hand up, and you can shout to us, and we'll repeat it for the live stream.
Hi, Josepha. Brian Kinney. I first want to say thank you. As you said, you're collecting information right now, and you attended a privacy meeting with all of us to kind of see what we're doing and what the feedback was. Moving forward with the project, I know you're collecting information right now. Have you seen what Joomla's done with their privacy suite and the tools that they've embedded as far as import, export, and GDPR compliance? Is that something that you're familiar with?
The question is, have I seen
Joomla's privacy suite?
Joomla's privacy suite.
The larger question is...
the answer to that one is no.
Okay, and who is setting the privacy agenda for WordPress and really setting the objectives for what we're trying to incorporate in core? And I've been contributing as part of the privacy team, but I want to assist in the most efficient and effective way possible, and it feels like it's lacking direction right now. And I'm just wondering if there's anything that I can do to help with that.
Yeah. So this is Ryan Kinney. Thank you very much for the question. The question was, who's setting the roadmap for privacy in WordPress? Is that basically it?
Yes, and also, do you know if there are any firm plans for where we're going in privacy to incorporate tools to help people with privacy compliance?
Yeah. And are there plans to help people with privacy compliance in the tool? So, number one thing is that at the moment, the people who are trying to help guide that privacy legacy, for lack of a better term, something that we can take in the future with us, we are having this structural change in the project that I think will help with this problem that team has, and also a couple of other teams that have the same problem, which is that you all feel like, based on the information you gave me, and also stop me if I start to overshare, but you all made it very clear to me that you felt like you have been raising this flag forever and not being able to get heard. And in my experience with managing large-scale people groups, what happens when you do that consistently and feel like you aren't heard, even if what you're hearing is, I appreciate it, but no, we can't do that right now, is that you get angry and start yelling. Because if people are too far away for you to say things nicely, you start shouting. And so, like, I understand that team feels pushed away. And I just, maybe on Monday, Tuesday, posted an update to what I would like to see the structure of our teams be to help with this exact problem. Because it's really hard for me, because in case you all did not know, there are thousands of you and one of me. It's really hard for me to identify like the people who are trusted advisors that are giving me information that is altruistic and with the long-term benefit of this broad swath of people that we serve in mind. Not to say that you all are not trustworthy. It's just, you know what I mean? And so I know that problem, and I think that those changes that I'm wanting to make will help us to get to a point where we can absolutely set that up. As far as who has reviewed your roadmap, Gary Pendergast has reviewed it for me and kind of redlined some stuff. Jonathan DeRosiers also redlined some things for me that they thought were like super high priority versus et cetera, et cetera. And so yeah, there are people who are looking at it, and I know that right now it feels like we're just like, shush, go away, but we're not. I'm not.
Thank you, Josepha.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I think the important thing about that is it's really sprawling across a lot of teams. Is who are not just the stakeholders, but who are the trusted advisors that we said, like, was the leadership, who's the person that, and that's an old school WordPress problem, frankly, that needs TBD.
This will never come up for most of you, but in case you wonder, I do speak on a regular basis with people that I call my WordPress historians, because I haven't been here long enough to know everything that we tried and failed at, and I would love to not fail at things we already failed at. I would like to just be better. And so there are a number of people who've been in the project for a really long time, and they are incredibly gracious with their time. Anytime that you're one of those, I've got a couple back there. I feel like there's some over there probably. Is this a time? No.
The car's just dancing.
Hey.
He does that randomly. We're just we play off.
Yeah, so depending on the problem that people are bringing to me, I have a large group of people that I ask historical information from, and I cannot say enough how much I appreciate them giving all of their time for free to me. You included, thank you.
You're welcome. Anytime. So I guess.
So logistics question.
Yes.
Do you want to take more questions and cut into your time?
Or it's whatever we want to do.
Well, listen, I want to make it clear. I'm not inviting him back for a third year. Just because Matt took his spot last year.
Oh, no!
It's okay. There's no hurt feeling.
No, I'm joking. As long as we can get John back here next year, I don't care.
I was about to announce my retirement, but I guess not. We'll come back out of retirement right away.
You all, I'm like filled with anxiety over not giving him his due credence.
Oh goodness, no. If there are other questions, if there are important questions, I want to make sure that they get asked and answered. So is there anything from Twitter that...
There are questions, but you're going to respond to...
Yeah, sure. I can respond to those Twitter questions asynchronously afterward, but sorry, live streamers, for lying to you.
Wow, how about a Twitter question?
Do you want to...
All the people who ask.
Oh, sure. Do you have a question? Is that... Sure.
It's serious. Hi, my name is David Bissett. We don't have time for this. The game show starts at 5. I've got to be home by 6. My question is, in order for the WordPress project to continue to grow, I think generally speaking, it would be accepted that the next generation period, people need to be accepted into the project, of course, and be integrated into it. And in order for WordPress to grow, because WordPress has been around for how many years?
Almost 16.
16, and if we wanted, that's a long time. Literally, she has been born and has grown up during that time. So my question is, how, when we're dealing with contributing in the community, and how are we keeping in mind, or can we keep in mind, the fact that there's this next generation that has grown, that is using all these different types of technologies? How can we attract them to the WordPress project, whether it's contributing to code or contributing to the community? But eventually I'm going to be old Peter. In fact, that's probably in about 20 minutes.
Never.
But does that question make sense? I mean, we're talking beyond...
How do we keep next generations engaged in the WordPress project?
Yes, and this is more from a contributing standpoint more than a kid standpoint.
Yeah.
So feel free to take that question very briefly anywhere you want.
If I ever spoke briefly about the community, it was because I was sick. I don't speak briefly about the community, but I do
I'm
try.
going to get an email about that.
So the question is, how do we keep basically new contributors, but definitely the new generation of contributors engaged in what we're doing here? And that has to do with, if I say D&I, do you all know what that means? No. Okay, diversity and inclusion. So those are two different types of work that sometimes get smashed all into one type of work. Diversity is calling people in to join your project, which I feel like we try really hard to do in WordPress. And the inclusion part is my part, and our part, people who are already participating in the community, the people who do the work to make sure that once people get here, they are welcome and they know where to go and they know what to do. And my current answer is fix a lot of the infrastructure problems that we have right now. The structural problems of the WordPress project and WordPress community aren't literally problems for where we are now and for what we were doing before, but at the scale that we're at, it will be a problem like almost in no time. We're over our kind of like toddler phases of being this project that was, you know, a hobby thing, and maybe sometimes people did things with it, and maybe they didn't, but they always put words on it, kind of. Like, we're past that part, and we're officially in this this place where we have to make decisions that are good and right, and we have to figure out how to keep talking to the people who need the most help getting started with our stuff. Because we democratize publishing, we give voices to the voiceless, we care about giving a more equal playing field to people who haven't had it in the past. And we can't do that if we don't bring other people in, bring in new contributors and such. And so, like, it's tidying our house and making sure that we've stated we accept people who have not been coding for 5 years. We accept designers here. We accept people of color here. Like, it's that basic, just defining. We value you as a person, and we value what you bring to this table, and please come join us. And the inclusion part is the job of everybody who's already involved. So that's kind of a big answer to a question. Is it?
I got my money for it.
I feel like that was really brief for a diversity and inclusion answer. I'm proud of myself. We have a follow-up question.
So what can female people who identify as female people of color do to improve our community in the next 3 years within your roadmap?
What can people who identify as women and people of color do to help make it a more inclusive space?
It's improve our community.
To improve our community. This is a wonderful question. One of the things that made all the difference for me in my home community when I started was just the fact that clearly people who were not your traditional, like, white male developer were doing things. They were visible and they were present, and I will not say that literally every woman or literally every person of color should go out and give a presentation right now so that people know that you're around. Like that, I would not do that, because some of you are afraid to, like, ask a question right now, let alone get up here and do this. So, like, I would never do that to any of you. But it is that sort of thing. Like I said at the beginning, I always have felt like if I had wished that I could have had help at that moment in my career, I owe it, now that I am at a comfortable point in my career, I owe it to other people to offer a hand to help them also. And so I think that the thing is, like, show up and just, like, be even mildly active in the thing so that people know that you're there. If that's something you're comfortable with. If it's not something you're comfortable with, find a friend and bring them with you. And yeah, it's all about kind of clearly identifying that you are welcome there, and therefore other people like you are welcome. Yes.
What one thing in WordPress core, if you didn't have to run it by, like, any committers or anything, like, you just make it happen, what would you change?
What one thing would I change in core if I didn't have to ask anybody at all? If wishes were fishes, what would I do to core? Right now, the thing that I would change in core, if one, I didn't have to ask anybody, and two, I had unlimited and unlimited dev time, is sort out the difficulties with working with other languages inside. And I mean literal spoken languages. I love developers, and I don't care about all the kinds of languages that we use inside WordPress, because I do not understand any of them. I just love that they make WordPress happen. But yeah, I think that if we as a tool ever want to stop just being kind of US and European centric in adoption, we really have to figure out some of our other languages and how to support them better and more effectively. And so that is, I think, the thing that I would change. Also, I didn't ask anybody about like the technical side of that, or if it's all filled with nonsense. You two, I'm just going to ignore you right now. Yeah. John, kick me out if you need to kick me out.
Just trying to make sure that my laptop works and does its thing. Can't really see the screen.
Yes, ma'am. So this is a long question. It's about Gutenberg. It sounded like it was two parts. One, what caused the negative perception of it, and two, who made the decision to do it, or is it just that second one? Just the second. Okay, so the question is, who made the decision to do Gutenberg and things, and are they disconnected from the community? So, if any of you have heard of Morten Rand Hendrickson, he gave an excellent talk on kind of the trajectory and history of how this decision was made and where it was made at WordCamp US some year. If someone wants to find that and tweet it for me, crowdsourcing answers. Gary Pendergast also gave a great history lesson on how we did that last year at WordCamp US.
There's like lots of good name drops today. Morgan, we got Gary.
I didn't realize that you had rolled back over here and you just scared me to death. Keeping me.
I'll be back here. I'll be back
No,
here.
come back over here. Come back over here. I feel better with a companion. So the shortest answer of that is Matt Mullenweg, as the leader of the project, made the like, this is our new lighthouse. We're going to get that done. Now the question of, did he communicate with the community? Did he ask anyone? Did he do any work to see if it was necessary? The answer is, it seems to be, it was before my time, answer is yes. He did a lot of kind of what I'm doing, listening tours, wandering around asking people the things that were most uncomfortable for getting started with WordPress and getting started with the tool. And the thing that makes it seem as though, and this gets back to an earlier point about communication, the thing that makes it seem like striking and arbitrary and all of a sudden is that over the course of the change management for that, like no one ever at any point said, these are the essential problems that we have as people are getting started with our tool. And so this is our starting point. I believe that's our end point over there. Please come and jump in this raging river of change with me while we figure out if the endpoint is right. Like, I really think that what caused a lot of the ill will is terrible communication around all of that. And I will say that boldly as a current leader of the WordPress project, that we made a lot of communication errors. And I hear that a lot from people. And I have no intention of ignoring that everybody is saying it to me. Because it's true. It was really shocking for a lot of people, and yeah. So, does that answer? Great.
One last question, and then I'm gonna kick you out.
Kick me off stage.
Thank you so much. There's been a trend to take, I'm not sure if this is accurate, to take open source software and to spin off enterprise licenses. Like Red Hat, the difference between Red Hat and Open and CentOS and MySQL MariaDB. Is there any? You mentioned making WordPress more accessible to beginners. Is there? This is just an idea. Any attempt to spin off like an enterprise license of WordPress that has featured support for newbies or whatnot in the future? Is that a good idea that would come?
This is a very interesting question, and I don't think I've ever considered it. But so I'm going to try to repeat it. The question was: is there any intention of taking WordPress's open source license and modifying it into an enterprise license? and offering that as an alternative. And I'm pretty sure the answer is no. I'm pretty sure we can't do that under GPL. It's not allowed.
So my answer, if I may,
Please.
is that the conversation around WordPress distribution packages comes up quite a bit, actually. The folks, I think, and I don't know if they're still doing their thing at like Classic Press. They originally didn't want Gutenberg, and then they pivoted to be like a very enterprise-focused, specific distribution of WordPress itself. It comes up a lot. It's something that I think WordPress is a piece of software, it's a community and stuff. Well, so not the GPL and the license for WordPress core is what it is.
Right.
But he's talking about like, the question is more or less, like, since WordPress is sort of focusing on democratizing publishing, how do you solve a very specific, other very obvious need for enterprise folks that are looking for, yeah, WordPress is great, but we're looking for enterprise licensing and support that they're willing to pay for. And so it comes up a lot, but in the years of my being involved in the WordPress project, because WordPress being the community that it is, makes it hard for any one person to put their stamp on it as being like, we're the people that provide exactly the enterprise thing. I think folks naturally look at Automatic as that entity. I think that WordPress VIP did a good job of sort of shepherding that in the very early days with, from the beginning of that being a server in Matt's closet, on to being what it is today. But it was like under his desk, I think. It was like a server where he hosted everybody. It was like the original VIPs.
Everyone collectively forget that you said that.
But that was a long time ago. That was, that was the original. Matt was hosting his friends, basically, is all it was. So the answer is probably unlikely, but it comes up a lot. Because I think it's healthy. I think it's a sign of growth that there be multiple distributions of something like Debian or Linux or anything. Like, people go a separate way, but everyone's still focused on the same sort of root kernel idea. So,
Well, John, thank
okay,
you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you all very
Josepha,
much.
for everything.